Hey leaders, welcome to part 3 where we're going to walk through the typical CIY schedule, make sure that you're prepared and know what's going to be coming for you each day. So jumping in, part 3, a typical day at CIY with some other details on some of the special days. I recommend, and we're just going to try to recommend this for students, leaders, you might need to get up earlier than this, but we're going to recommend students get up about 6:45. Maybe 7 if we've got a late breakfast time, but about 6:45, I would recommend that you just go to all the doors that our students live in, all those rooms, and just knock and just try to see if they're awake. They're going to be in there. Sometimes their doors are going to be locked because they slept that way. But knock, try to make sure that they're up. Ultimately, it's their responsibility to get up, but we sometimes need to help them along, especially as the week gets going. 6:50, you're going to want to text your coffee order to me. I always tell leaders I will buy you as much coffee as you need for the week. So if you've just got one thing that you want every week, every day, I'll buy it for you every morning. If that changes, text me your order and I'll have it waiting for you at the leader meeting. And we're going to talk about that in just a minute. Around 7 o'clock is going to be breakfast. Now we talked about in the last piece of this that your wristband will determine what time you eat. Normally that means you'll either eat at 7 or 7:20 or 7:40. Now, the 7 o'clock time's tricky because it's early. I like 7:20 personally. 7:40 is the trickiest for leaders, and that's because we eat at 7:40, but at 7:45 across campus is the leader meeting. Now, normally, I'll let you in on a little secret. Normally, Oregon State and CIY is pretty good about, if you're a leader, they will let you go in and eat at 7 or 7:15. It doesn't matter what color your wristband is. You can't take students in with you, but they will let you eat and make sure you can get through. However, if you would prefer to just eat at 7:40, what we will do is we will make sure, and we'll have a group text going on, we will make sure that at least 2 of our leaders make it to the leader meeting. But if you're the leader who goes to the leader meeting, you need to take good notes and make sure that you share the info with the rest of the team so that we're aware of what's going on. CIY will usually spend some time in those leader meetings celebrating wins, taking prayer requests, talking about the day, talking about any special elements that are going to come up with the sessions. And so we want to make sure that we get that info. Usually I don't even make it to leader meetings, but we have a few volunteers who are in there getting that info and then helping me know and the rest of the team what's going on. But at 7:45, there's a leader meeting. Students are free in that time to eat breakfast, but then they need to start heading over to the worship area. At 8:30, they usually have a kind of a fun opening morning session for students. It's games, funny videos. It's worth checking out. You want your students to be involved in that. But the next big thing, 9 o'clock is the morning session. 9 o'clock morning session is usually pretty tightly just an hour, depending on the speaker. They usually do some worship, they usually do some prayer, and then the morning speaker talks for about 25 minutes. Immediately after that time, we're going to go do something called encounter time. Now, encounter time is the students going off alone and having their own time with God. So here's how this is going to work. When worship finishes, we will gather our students into one big room. And I can't tell you which room that's going to be yet, but on the first night of CIY, we will establish what that room is and make sure that students know anytime a session finishes, every single time a session finishes, you come to this room. So we'll gather them. I will hand out the sheets that they're going to need for encounter time, and then they're going to be free for about 45 minutes to an hour to just go find a quiet place and spend time with God. The main guidelines are don't wander too far off and don't distract people, but instead have a good, rich time with God. They're going to come back from that, and I usually have them come back about 10 minutes early, and then we're going to jump into small groups. And so you'll be taking your small group. You'll go find a quiet place or maybe stay in the room that we've been in, and you're going to lead your group through that small group time. Now, 2 things that you need to know about that small group time. First off, CIY is going to probably give you some resources, some cards, some questions, some activities, and it's up to you on how much you want to use those. They do a great job. I like to use them for the most part. Also, during some of the sessions where CIY doesn't provide materials, you will be receiving via text from either me, Chris, Gabe, or somebody else who is a leader, you will be receiving small group questions. So that means that as we've listened to the message, we've been thinking up questions and we're sending those out to the group to give you a starting place on how to ask questions and where to go from there. We got about an hour for small group time. If we eat at noon, Again, remember the wristbands, we eat at either 12, 12:20, or 12:40. And depending on what time we eat, we might end small groups just a little bit early. We want to make sure we get there at our time to eat with our students. After that, 1:30, CIY offers electives. Now, electives are some classes or different things that they put on. Sometimes it's a seminar taught by somebody on the CIY staff or a youth minister that CIY works with. Sometimes it can be something like, hey, come and hang out with a band if you're interested in music and tech and all that good stuff. Most of the time, I don't require students to go to electives, but sometimes there's an elective that's so good that I tell the whole group that they have to be there. I'll let them know during small group time how that is going to work. But usually we give students the option, we encourage them to go check those out, but if they're not going to, that means they get to start free time. Now again, the rules for free time: be in a group, stay on or very, very close to campus, and then basically just don't disrespect the property of Oregon State, CIY, be good, all that good stuff. And then that's gonna lead up to dinner, 5 o'clock or 5:20 or 5:40, depending on your wristband. Students need to go to dinner. Unless they've made previous arrangements with their small group leader to go to Jimmy John's or something like that, they need to plan on coming to dinner. We need to make sure students are eating and getting the nutrition that they need to get through the week. After dinner, things are a little bit slow and chill, which is fine. But 7 o'clock, evening session, and there is nothing slow and chill about evening session. Evening session, we need to make sure everyone's there by 7. There's going to be some awesome worship. They will bring in a different speaker usually each night for evening worship, again speaking on the theme of 1 John and the contrast idea. And then normally after that, CIY has a tendency, and I never know year to year, but CIY has a tendency to finish their sessions with different visual aids. And so a lot of times there's a call to respond. There is something that they've put together to help drive the point home visually. They will usually give us a heads up about that in the leader meeting. And so that's why if you go to the meeting, make sure you tell the other leaders what's going on, because sometimes we participate in that and they use leaders or we have to hand something out. We need to make sure that we are ready to go for that. After evening session, and this is the part of it where we have a schedule, but it's really the schedule is really at the mercy of whatever happened in session. So if session goes long, we just push everything. But a lot of times we will finish up a worship session and we'll find that it hits students hard. And so we might get to youth group time at around 9:30 and find that a lot of students are crying. A lot of students are maybe struggling, or God hit them and they're rejoicing, or they need to talk some stuff through. We will play it by ear on what we do from there. So meaning, if we get into large group time and I look around and there's 4 leaders missing because they're talking to students, I'm going to just keep everyone in one room and we're just going to debrief as a group. If we get there and everybody's pretty good to go, I'll kind of do a brief recap, kind of speak to what happened that night, help students process it, get the ball rolling on that, and then we'll break up into small groups and you can spend time talking to your students about what they encountered, what they thought. Usually in those evening times, CIY does not provide small group materials, and so that's where Chris and I or Gabe or whoever will be sending out those questions during sessions so that you have direction for where to go. Once we finish that time up, and again, it's always that time can be wild. I've had CIYs where I spent 2 hours from 9:30 to 11:30 just talking to students about stuff, and then CIY is like, hey, you guys need to go to bed. Okay, yeah, sorry, which is fine. Sometimes we have looked at our group and said, hey, everybody looks great, and that was a good session, but didn't quite hit. Let's go get ice cream. But right around 11:30. We need to make sure that students are inside, not out on the streets, not running to the gas station, not sneaking out, not in the lobby causing trouble or something like that. Or even if they're not causing trouble, CIY and Oregon State prefers that they be up in their dorm, in their room area, and then we just want to encourage them from there to head to bed. This lights out time can be a great time if you've got to talk to a student or if a student just wants to visit. I would recommend, as much as you have energy for, make yourself available at 11:30, prop your door open and just hang out, wander the halls, talk to students. And you can always just ask them questions. If you're intimidated by that, you can always just ask them questions about what they learned. Hey, how was your day? What was the best part of your day? What did you think of worship? What songs have been hitting you? What did you think of the speaker? What was good? What did you not like? What was helpful? Did it cause any questions? You can ask those types of questions to students to kind of get the ball rolling. You can also even ask stuff after you've talked for a little bit. How is this week challenging how you've been living your life? Or how is this week encouraging you and how you've been living your life? Whatever that might look like, you've got the opportunity to talk to them in those moments. A couple other notes. Like I said in the last session, when we do the beach trip day, that takes the place of free time that day. There may also be some days where I require them to go to an elective and go and take care of that. There is, usually on Wednesday or Thursday night, there's something called the Alternative, which is kind of CIY's version of a talent show. That's going to actually happen kind of after small groups. It's kind of a late night thing that usually starts around 10 or 10:30. In the past, we've had students participate in it, and normally I require students to go to it just because I don't want half of our group there and half of our group who knows where. So we do require students to go to the Alternative. The only exception is if they're talking to a leader, if they're working through something from the session, if they're processing something, if they're having trouble with something. That's kind of the only exception to not being at the Alternative. But really, in that free time, in those moments where you've got with students, as much as you have energy for, I would encourage you to engage with them, to ask questions with them, to go take them out to Dutch Bros on campus there and just sit and visit, catch up with them. Hey, how's your life? How's your heart? What's going on? How is this week challenging things for you? How is this week encouraging things for you? So that's a look at the schedule. We have just one more video to go, and that's going to talk about leading small groups at CIY.